based on true events, begins when Giselle, a former model in Honduras, comes to the home of Roberto, the poor father of a little girl named Rosie and a boy named Miguel. She suggests that the man bring the children to a screening for modeling, believing that the girl and her younger brother have a good chance of becoming models. Early in the morning, the family takes a bus to the audition. Roberto is not allowed to go to the audition with the children, telling them to come back later. The unsuspecting father leaves his children with a mysterious stranger. However, in the evening, when he returns to pick up his children, no one opens the door and the room is empty and deserted. In a panic, Roberto breaks into the other rooms, but there is no trace of Miss Honduras in the entire building. The scene shifts to California, where another pedophile is on his computer looking through a catalog of children. Outside the house in a van sits Homeland Security Special Agent Tim Ballard, tracking the bastard. Convinced, by tracking the IP address, that it's him, Tim and his partner enter the house to take the pervert red-handed. Upon searching the house, the agents find enough evidence, including a dossier of photos of young children, to put the lover of child innocence behind bars. Later, his partner, learning that Tim has caught 238 pedophiles, asks how many kidnapped children he has saved, to which the answer is none. Tim fills out a report, studying the videotapes. Tears come to his eyes. Unable to stand it, he goes to the cell with the detainee whom he invites for a walk, away from the surveillance cameras. In the cafeteria, he confesses that he thinks he is like him in his attraction to small children. He says he's forced to watch at work, but now it's not enough for him. The criminal doesn't believe the agent, but Tim quotes a line from a book he's written and offers him a smoke. After returning the pedophile to his cell, he smiles at him, but barely moves away, a grimace of repulsiveness on his face. At home, in the company of his loving wife and children, Tim remembers the victims of perverts and feels helpless to save them. He asks his boss for a week for an operation to gain the trust of the molester. Tim releases him from arrest, then, feigning interest, inquires about how he can fulfill his desires with impunity. Later, the pedophile gives Tim his autographed book with Miguel's picture. He arranges to buy a child for a new friend. The agent smiles broadly and sincerely, then rearrests the pedophile. As his colleagues lead him away, Tim looks at the photo. There is a stream of cars coming across the border between Mexico and the United States. Tim and the border agents check the incoming cars, looking for the boy in the photo, who is being taken on a hit and run. Spotting Miguel, the agent commands the driver to be arrested after talking to the frightened child. Miguel is examined at the hospital, where he is diagnosed with injuries caused by sexual abuse. When Tim takes the boy out to eat, he learns about his sister, who is also a captive slave trader. The boy recalls how they were put into a van from a photo shoot and taken to a warehouse where they were reloaded into the back of a truck before a container ship took them by sea to Colombia. There, they were auctioned off to interested buyers. The boy never saw his sister again. The bastard who bought him out said if Miguel didn't listen, the bad uncles would kill his sister. Tim arranges a flight for the boy's father to hand him over. On his way home, the boy gives the agent his sister's amulet, which she gave him before they parted. An enraged Tim goes to the station to question Fat Earl, the arrested child trafficker. Having found out the necessary information, he begins to act. The girl in the meantime gets a tattoo of the owner, sending her to a cheap brothel for perverts. Tim finds her file and asks the boss to send it to Colombia, which is out of their jurisdiction. The boss sends him with minimal funding so he doesn't have to report to management. Tim arrives in Colombia, where he is met by his co-worker Jorge. They go to question an informant, a former drug cartel accountant named Vampiro. After serving time, Vampiro began buying children himself, with the goal of freeing them from slavery. Vampiro does not like the agent's appearance. He is dressed too formally. The informant says that the chance of finding Rossi is minimal. The girl could be anywhere. But Vampiro knows how to find Giselle, a former model who kidnaps children. While waiting for the meeting, Tim reads news about the successes of colleagues around the world, practicing his erudition for the role of a pervert. He suggests that Vampiro organize a fiction in the form of a business to catch criminals alive. To do this, he enlists an acquaintance of a rich man, Paul, who stands in solidarity in his hatred of child trafficking. The situation becomes more complicated when Tim is denied funding and instructed to return home. After discussing the situation with Vampiro, the agent realizes that he can't live with himself if he refuses the case. He informs his superiors that he will write a letter of resignation if the funding stops. Tim convinces Paul, a millionaire, to finance the case, which he agrees to, though not immediately. They begin to develop an operation, using personal connections to rent the island under the guise of their own. Tim's former boss convinces his colleagues from Colombia to help, bypassing their superiors. Vampiro also teaches Paul how to behave in the company of human traffickers. Soon, the organizers of the operation meet with them to discuss the details of the event. Giselle inquires about the rich man's unusual tastes, testing his true love for children, but all is bypassed when Tim skillfully deceives the criminal. As a result of the meeting, they agree to deliver a minimum of 50 children to a private island. On the appointed day, the traders deliver the goods to the island, but there are fewer children than agreed. Giselle promises that a second shipment will arrive soon. However, with them arrives a new man nicknamed Don King, who was not present at the negotiations, which alarms Tim. The millionaire throws money around while the salesmen and organizers have fun. When Don King goes to pick his victim, Vampiro distracts him with alcohol, hoping to buy time. Tim contacts the capture team, realizing that the situation could get out of hand. This time, Don King has his eye on the boy, but Tim prevents him from accomplishing his plan. The situation escalates dramatically. Don King's bodyguard holds a gun to Tim, pulling the trigger. Vampiro asks him to give up the baby, then takes his guest back to drinking instead of the bedroom. When a boat with a second batch of children docks at the island, the task force moves in to apprehend them. When the children come ashore, the agents begin moving toward the camp, detaining everyone, including the undercover agents, to maintain conspiracy. Later, when the traffickers are taken away, Jorge informs Tim that they have rescued 54 children. However, they didn't find Russia among them. Vampiro and Tim go to the children, who clap their hands and sing joyfully. During the interrogation, Jorge is psychologically manipulated to get the information they need. They learn that the girl was sold long ago to a certain Scorpio, a rebel leader upriver. Jorge is convinced that finding her is a 1 in a million chance. But Vampiro has a plan. What if they pretend to be doctors whose help the rebels themselves need? They get fake IDs and go on a mission. Jorge informs them that he's not going any farther than the river. Wandering through the jungle, they interview locals in an attempt to reach Scorpio's camp. At night, Vampiro reminds them that they will be alone, and if they fail, no one will rescue them. Before going to bed, Tim writes to his wife without informing her of the upcoming mission. Early in the morning, they board the boat, say goodbye to Jorge, and set sail. Upriver, they are spotted by rebels. They check the travelers' crates to make sure there are only medical supplies and no weapons. After radioing the leader, they issue an ultimatum that only one of them will go further. Tim agrees, telling Vampiro that he'll be back at night and to be on his guard. After gathering medical supplies, the rebels and the agent swim to the base. Jorge's GPS sees his colleague moving down the river toward the camp. Arriving, Tim is escorted to the camp by land. Along the way, he notices cocaine plantations, the main livelihood of Scorpio and his gang. The agent tells him that a cholera outbreak could turn into an epidemic that could kill everyone in the camp. He talks about evacuating, but Scorpio tells him to find all the sick and bring them to him. While wandering among the inhabitants, Tim spots a girl among the people. He spots her among the children, crumpling one of the ingredients for cocaine with their feet. The man calls the girl's name, and she turns around. The agent says he's come to rescue her, but Scorpio appears, interrupting the conversation. Having gone out at night to search for her, Tim walks through the camp looking for Rosie. However, she is not among the workers. So the agent sneaks further past the drunken rebels. He finds her in Scorpio's house, sleeping on a bed. When Tim is the girl screams in fear, which the drug dealer hears. Leaving his guitar behind, Scorpio goes to the cabin to check on the hostage. He sees her in bed, not noticing Tim lying under the bed. Rebel puts the girl on his bed, telling her to close her eyes. Tim gets into a fight with the bastard, killing him with a chokehold. After hiding the body, Tim and Rossi escape into the jungle. They manage to get to the river and steal a boat before the corpse is discovered and the alarm is raised. Having tracked their comrades' approach by GPS, they prepare to leave. Under a hail of bullets from the rebels, the rescuers manage to successfully escape with the girl. In the van, Tim places the locket that Miguel gave him in her hand. Rosie is brought to the hospital, where in the morning she is visited by her happy father along with Miguel. Later, the reunited family takes a plane home. After going through horror and pain, she returns to her room. Sitting on her bed, she picks up a drum and begins to play, singing along to the rhythm. It is the sound of freedom. The camera slowly recedes, flying out the window. And on this positive note, the film moves on to historical background and operational footage of detentions, as well as information about the profitability of such an inhumane business, which is still unaddressed. More people are enslaved today than ever before, including when slavery was legal.